Hello, everyone. This is Kristen Nettopack with my favorite day of the week, Friday, because it's the day that I get to shoot tea and magic and bring on some amazing guests that are here to help you basically use magic, find your power, and step into that next level of soul mission in your life. And I really want to mention that because this week I have a reoccurring guest, one of my favorite human beings, my Alec Baldwin. If I was SNL, she is my Alec Baldwin. She's been on the show so many times. Tiffany Rose, one of my favorite people ever, and Pepper, the amazing Pepper, her dog. She is the CEO of Majorly Arcana. She has a ton of websites that I'm going to tell you guys about today, or she's going to tell you about today. And you've seen her on other episodes. And if you haven't, she is on Tea and Magic episode 1, and she is on Tea and Magic episode 7 in a very special edition of Tarot for beginners. So this episode today is called Shaping Your Life with Tarot, and it's an extension of that other episode that we did. That's more about learning. This is more about how do you create a life with tarot, using tarot. So hi, how are you?
I am good. How are you doing?
Ooh, I'm good. Friday is my favorite day. Seriously, this is why Friday's my favorite day. It just puts me in such a good mood and see your smiling face, of course.
Oh, I love hanging out with you too. And I mean, if I'm a 3-timer guest, I only need 2 more times to like join the 5-time members club, like on us now.
Oh yeah, and you're gonna be the only person in this club unless I have reoccurring guests. She's gonna be on every other episode.
I'll get a jacket that like says like reoccurring guest on the Magic Road.
Oh my gosh, wait a minute. We need jackets. We need Tea and Magic jackets. That is, you know what, you guys, someday when I have sponsors and I'm getting, paid for this operation, I'm going to put that out there that we're going to have jackets for myself and my guests. I mean, what an amazing thing you get if you get to be on the show is like a Tea and Magic jacket. That's amazing.
These jackets from Greece.
Yes. They've got to be like that satin material, like the dark teal green of the Magic robe with like gold, and it has to have like embroidered leaves and ravens and just like all of that juicy. I mean, look at my background, all of that juicy stuff.
I love it.
Yes.
I'm being held hostage by my dog today. She's just like standing on me, like, excuse me, I know that you have this meeting, but you need to pay attention to me.
See, I think she knows that she's on a show right now. I think Pepper knows that she's live. She's like, wait, you're not going to do this without me. You need me, girl. I'm your familiar. You need me. I love it.
You used a stinky breath one. The familiar is, I don't know where the familiar is. She's away, right? Oh, yes, you gave me kisses.
I think doggies can be familiars too.
You can. Well,
while Pepper's hanging out with you, of course, this is Tea and Magic. So even though you've been on so many times, like I keep asking you to bring different concoctions to drink, but what are you drinking today?
Today, I am drinking passion fruit tea that I made last night. It's iced tea. It's actually one of my favorites. I love literally any hibiscus flavored tea. Like if it's a red looking tea, like the ones from I think this is actually the same kind that they serve at Starbucks. You can just buy it on its own in like packets to make your own iced tea. So
yum. I've got my usual cacao chai, like just I mentioned it last week and I really need to put the recipe out there, but this week I've got my favorite mug because I mentioned it. This favorite mug. I have a collection of unicorn mugs. When I moved to Topanga, I used to live in California. I now live in Oregon, and I was in Topanga, which is amazing, by the way. I had left my house. I got rid of all my possessions and I kind of started collecting the things that I wanted. And one of the first things was, I was like, I don't really drink coffee. I can't do caffeine, but I love tea. But I really want like a coffee tea setup, like a little nook. And I really want to have it be like pink. I mean, obviously like pink and girly and all the things I like. So I went out and I bought a bunch of really funny unicorn mugs. So I have a collection of unicorn mugs, but they're not normal. It's like, this is basically what they are. So shut the fuck up. That's my favorite mug. But I'm drinking my cacao concoction.
You need to get a P.O. box for your business and then put it on your video so people could send you more unicorn mugs. Big old collection going.
Wow. That is a brilliant idea. What do you guys think? Would you send me unicorn mugs? I would have, yeah, I mean, if there's anything anyone ever wants to send me, unicorns is like a good way to go.
They're my,
I
uh,
mean, I've got my crystal unicorn deck. So I love it. I've got my queen shirt. You can't really see it. My queen shirt. Oh my gosh. So today, like I said, we are moving into we have this amazing episode, a few episodes ago. That is episode you can find on YouTube if you haven't seen it. If you're watching this on YouTube, I'm going to link to it and I'll put it in all of the descriptions. So it's very easy to find. So if you're new to tarot, I highly recommend watching that episode where Tiffany gives us an amazing breakdown of all of the cards, what they mean, how to use them with like a killer exercise. This episode is more how to, I would say, discover your life path. How to, this is something that you said when we were having a discussion. You were like, so many people use tarot to try to predict the future, feeling like it's fated and it's already set in stone. But what you said was, I want to teach people how to shape the future. And it just like, these are our conversations every single week, you guys. It just blew my mind and I got chills. And I think you sent me a voice recording, and I was like, wow, that's gold. So let's just start with that. How did that idea come to you? And what are your thoughts on, I mean, yeah, like I feel like when we come up with these missions, we're really seeing something that's missing. Like you just said, everyone wants to do this, but I really want to do this. Like how did you come about that mission and that tagline and that desire?
So it actually started, okay, so one, I've been doing like I mentioned last episode, I've been doing tarot for a couple of years. I love reading for people. I love having multiple amounts of decks. As you could see here, I brought some to explore through. I didn't know what we might need. I didn't even bring the whole bag of decks. I just brought like a smattering. This is like 1/5.
That's what I do, by the way, when I go outside. I'm like, okay, I just need like a deck. And the next thing I know, there's 15 of them. I'm like, I just don't know which one's going to call and I want to get up. So I'm just going to bring them all.
And so one of my biggest things when I was writing my tarot episode that's on YouTube, you can search it under the Witchy Review Tarot, and it'll have like a cartoon that has a bandana like me, and that'll be my tarot episode. And I was writing the script, and one of the things is I always try to, a lot of my friends are kind of more of the skeptical end. A lot of my friends are more of the scientific end. And so they see me who, I'm a hardcore Ravenclaw, so I'm very like knowledgeable. And I'm also, I wouldn't call myself this, but like my unofficial name should be maybe like the skeptic witch, because like I'm a little bit more skeptical about things, partially because I find that helps me teach more, like having an open mind to what the possibilities are, but then keeping a good foot and like, okay, but here's what most people who are really skeptical think. So how can I break this down for them? That's kind of where I come from. And so when it comes to the tarot, time travel logic dictates that by knowing the future, we automatically change the future. That's just time travel logic. Like, even if we're not technically time traveling, like that's still the logic behind like, you get shown your future from tarot of, oh, this could happen. And most people are like, oh my gosh, it's destined, it's fate. It's like, no, that's one possibility. That might even be a possibility because the tarot works on patterns and archetypes. And don't get me wrong, when you're into it, like you experience some weird magic stuff. Like we've had stalker cards, you've had cards that just pop out that are like, wow, this is way too specific and relevant. And I know that they're like all archetypal, like match our mind, but still that's a little too on the nose. But overall, like, you know, if I do like a thing of like, oh, what's my future job path, and I look at it and then I'm disappointed, I'm not going to go after that. And on top of that, I might actually choose an entirely different path. So therefore, I saw a glimpse of what a potential future could be, but by knowing it, I decided to change it. Like that's the logic behind shaping your future with tarot. Is you can't, like, you could try to tell the future, but just by knowing it, it's just automatically going to change.
Oh, that's so powerful for me because I'm actually writing a book series, you guys know, and it really is about fate versus destiny. And we talk about this all the time. And just hearing you say that is so powerful for me because I constantly feel stuck in fate. And just to break it down for you guys, very short, is that fate is that karmic. This is what you came here with all of this DNA, all of this ancestral karma, these patterns that had been going through your family line for generations and generations. And that is fate. Like you're kind of stuck with that if you don't choose to change it, and choosing to change it and choosing to follow your soul mission and evolve is destiny. So there's a difference between that. And I came into this world feeling like I was so fated to do things. And sometimes that feeling when I first started working with readers and they would say, oh, I see this in your future. And I would get a little disappointed, like, yeah, but that's not really what I want. I felt stuck. I felt like, but that's my path. I have to go in that direction. So I love what you're saying, because it's so much more empowering to know that, yes, when we read people, when we read for ourselves, we are reading the energy of the moment, and that is an option. That is a possibility, but we always have the opportunity to choose. And that is so much more empowering, right? And that's what you're teaching people is you don't, like, don't just sit back and be a victim to your cards. You can look at that situation, and that's what we're all about here on Tea and Magic. There's no victims. It's all about being empowered. You empower people to look at it from a different perspective and realize that if they're not happy, they can change. So that's so empowering. I just wanted to like nail that into whoever's watching right now, that's what you're doing. And was there something like a moment in your life where you felt this is why I need to do this for people? Were you seeing people fall victim? Did you see that there was something missing in the marketplace? I mean, what really led you to that desire to really want to use this in a way to empower people? I can imagine that there's a lot of people that you see that just feel like they're victims of their fate.
Right. So before we do that, let me actually back up a couple steps.
Sure.
I'm not going to get fully into it today. I think we'll totally have to have like maybe you, me, and another guest too. Like we'll do like a three-way kind of in Magic. But I want to pop into soul missions for a second, because I think that's something that's really hard. For those of you who feel like you're fated or dealing with your destiny or whatever, one of the things that happened when I kind of started to discover my soul mission, because teaching tarot isn't necessarily my soul mission, it's part of it. But like what I'm working on is a lot bigger than that. I just happen to really think tarot is a great like entry point, because a lot of people are curious about it. It's kind of interesting. Like tarot and astrology are two great entry points into a lot of the stuff I teach, in a way that I can teach them both to work with your brain and work with patterns. Like with tarot, you're using it to shape your life. With astrology, you're looking at your imprint to give full, unconditional, radical self-acceptance. It's not about the future. It's just about like one hand discovering and shaping yourself, and the other hand, like actually one is shaping yourself, the other one's discovering yourself, and like both are like non-judgmental ways of doing it. So that way you can go towards and start unlocking whatever you think your soul mission or path might be. And here's the thing is, even if you find your quote unquote destiny, you don't actually have to go down that path. I've talked to Kristen about this, but I love this metaphor. And it's like in Harry Potter, where Dumbledore, I believe like Harry and Dumbledore were talking. I don't remember what point, but Harry was feeling down because he had seen like a prophecy, and he was like, oh, I guess like no matter what, like I have to fight like, Voldemort, like that kind of sucks, like that I have to be the one to do it, that it's me, and why does it have to be me? And Dumbledore's like, yeah, but would you really have it any other way? Like you and him could both choose to walk away from this and just continue living and just keep on keeping on. But like, he's not going to let go of it. But more importantly, think of someone else like taking him down. And Harry kind of realized, wait, no, I want it to be me.
Yes.
It's and I think in the book they described it as the difference between being dragged into your destiny, kicking and screaming, versus like walking into your destiny and path with your head held high. So I think I'd like, so before we even get like into more of that, I just wanted to put that out there for people, especially if you're struggling with finding that quote unquote it. And it doesn't always have to be a big life-changing cataclysmic thing. Like you and I are working on bigger things. We kind of tend to work with people who are like into this thing, but I think that for the average layman, that might be a lot of pressure. Not everyone's meant to do those things. Sometimes you're meant to just kind of maybe like, I don't know, like I think of a friend and she wants to like illustrate children's books. It's like, maybe that's her destiny. Maybe that's her path, is that, it's not necessarily like growing a giant like company or like making a giant media franchise, but it's still something that like could affect like a lot of kids even.
Yeah. And that's the thing too, is like everyone's destiny, everyone came here. We're equally as important. Even like someone that's like, I'm a stay-at-home mom and I take care of these children, like equally important. It's just and the thing is, it's not what I see it as not necessarily your contribution to the world. Because a lot of times we're like, oh, but I need to be big. I need to be famous. I need to make it big. You know, that's where my mind always goes. Life path eight problems. But that's really what I'm here for. But it's what does your soul desire to do in this lifetime? And I love what you're saying about walking towards your destiny as opposed to being dragged, because your soul actually wants to do this thing. So it knows that their destiny and what you're here for, you are capable of, but it's also something that's going to bring you great joy. And a lot of times when we go kicking and screaming, it's all of that conditioning around us and the way we grew up and all that trauma and the karma and whatever is following us that actually makes us feel like we can't do it. So a lot of our life is built around growing into realizing that we actually do want to do that, right? It's like so many phases along the way.
And I would say also one of the things that kind of gets us kicking and screaming and feeling like we're dragged into it is that regardless on people's thoughts about like the current economic situation and stuff like that, like capitalism isn't the most efficient system. I don't know what it is, so like I'm not going to get into it with anyone in the comments about that. But in terms of the things that capitalism does, that comes from a puritanical Christian mindset of you're only valid if you're working and you're only valid if you're working hard, which completely erases people who are disabled and unable to do that but might have something else to contribute. There's that kind of concept of like, you know, what your worth is, and basically how can I put it, we're conditioned to see all these things that are wrong with us and see all these things that we should be doing to earn money and spend money and consume. And like, don't get me wrong, I love stuff. I love stuff. Like, look at my books. I love stuff. But
I love shiny stuff.
Shiny,
clearly.
Like, I love stuff. I love I love electronics. But the problem is that we're conditioned to believe that like that's our only real purpose and drive is to work for someone and make money, because that's what our worth is how hard we can work. Not even if we're producing good work, just that we're constantly working, you know, not even 40-hour weeks. Like, you know, you hear the hustle culture about having to work 60, 80-hour weeks in order to make a success. And as a witch, it's interesting because a lot of the stuff I'm seeing from a lot higher up witches who are doing businesses is like, you know, maybe it's not about having to work hard. Maybe it's about you can work like, you know, less hours and make more money. And it's that you're not like unblocking yourself to see the possibilities of what you could do to earn that kind of money, you know? So
yeah,
I kind of have the brains. So I'm going a little all over the place. So I'm trying to bring it back in. And the point is that we're conditioned to believe that we're worthy, or that we're less worthy and less than, and that the only way to fulfill that is to buy stuff and to work hard. And if we're not working our butts off to the point of exhaustion, and if we're not constantly consuming something that someone else made, that we don't have value and worth. And that's, I think, what prevents a lot of us from finding like our soul mission, our soul path, our soul destiny, because we're told, yeah, but that's not going to make money in the current economic system, or yeah, that's just like a pipe dream or whatever, you know?
Wow, this is hitting hard for me this week, because I just had a huge revelation. I'm working with Sarah, one of our past guests in Earth Magic, and I will share this. You know, we had a whole conversation about honoring my truth and my space, and I've thought a lot about this week, so I do choose to share this bit today. I've kept a lot of it to myself. My chat was Monday, but this is really hitting hard because something that I struggled with was, I know in a lot of past lives, I've done a tremendous amount of work for a lot of people. I've always been the leader. I've stepped out there, and, you know, sometimes I've gotten killed for it. And in this life, my destiny was to create, just to be creator and to create the story that I'm working on. But also a huge part of that was learning to enjoy life and learning to just take a chill pill and sit with my intuition and have just a life that's a little more, I don't want to say simple, but just a little more at ease. Like, I grew up being that person where I felt like I had to be ambitious and I constantly had to work and do, and because I felt that that was how I proved myself, how I created that value for myself. And I've recently, over the last several years, learned that it really is just me being me being authentic, me being present, and me living the life that I want to live. That is what is more important. And if that means I do want to be ambitious and go out and do something, great, but I don't have to. And when I hear you talking about this, I think, and especially a lot of women, a lot of entrepreneurs, because we're taught, you know, we see constant ads. You got to hustle, you got to market, you got to do this, you got to do this, you constantly got to be working, got to have a huge team. Like if you're sleeping, you're doing something wrong. And I was like, whoa, I love sleep. I love my sleep. And I right now, I find that I am so happy with my life. And I'll tell you guys, this show starts at noon for a reason. I'm not doing anything before noon. I do a lot of things before noon, but I go for hikes. I go to the beach. I play with my cats. I eat. I make myself homemade tea. I'm out doing my cards. I'm meditating. I'm chatting with my friends on social media. And then at noon, I'm like, okay, I'm going to start work. And it's just so important that we send that message to especially entrepreneurs that feel like they just have to do and they feel like they're not doing enough. Because a lot of times, I think, and I want to know your opinion about this because we talk about money all the time. A lot of times, if you're doing what you love and you're not making $1 trillion, that also plays into, well, what I'm doing isn't important. It's not valuable because I don't have a million people paying for it right now. So what is your mindset on that, on money? You know, how do you keep yourself going because I know you're building a lot of businesses right now. And how do you keep yourself going when you're like, okay, I know I'm not making the money yet, but I know I can. But yeah, I think that's the other half of it is like value working hard and working too much, and value coming with like, but every second I work, I should be making money off of this. Because I think a lot of people struggle with that.
Oh, a lot of people struggle with that. Well, let's see. That's actually kind of an interesting question. So this actually comes from, I do a lot of self-development work, and part of what I want to teach is a lot of the overlap between a lot of the self-development work and a lot of witchcraft and stuff like that. And one of the overlaps between self-development and witchcraft is neuroplasticity and how your brain works and how your brain forms and how your brain functions. And the best way to describe it for people who have kind of never really heard of this concept is your brain is rewritable. It's not quick. It's not like you can just like move a file over and be like, boop, 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 done. But you can like rewrite certain areas of your brain, like rewire them. I tell myself that I'm rewiring myself all the time. But part of it is, in the community, we kind of call them brain grooves or other different ways. Like they're kind of like roadways. And in short, you can have like a really thick neural pathway of a thought that you've thought a whole bunch. And when you try to go to a new thought, it's going to form a new pathway. It's going to be very thin. So it's like the difference between going between two paths, and one's a super highway that's been built for years with like 5 lanes. And then the other one's like a completely new trail that you're having to machete your way through. So the new one that you're going to have to machete your way through is going to take a lot longer to get like as easy access as like the 5-lane super highway that you've been thinking. And so this applies to money. I've been doing a lot of money mindset work using the techniques I've learned from the life coach school and Unfuck Your Brain. It's this concept called the model, where you have circumstances and everything outside of your brain that's not your brain is a circumstance, and all circumstances are neutral. And this is a really hard thing for people to accept because they come in, but what about war, famine, drought, like all these things? Like, yes, those things are bad, because as soon as it gets into our human brain processes it and decides it's bad. If a rock were to look at war and famine, if my tarot deck, like if this bottle of tea were to look at war and famine, it does not have a brain to determine, oh, war is a bad thing. Like, and if it were a universal truth that it was a bad thing, literally it would not exist anymore, and we wouldn't even have a concept for it. But it only becomes bad once it enters into our fleshy meat brains. So going with that, then you have thoughts, and all your thoughts are optional. They're all just sentences in your head. From your thoughts, you have feelings, which are the physical sensations in your body, emotions, feelings like happy, sad, anxious. We in colloquially tend to do, oh, I just feel like this person isn't listening to me. No, you don't know. You have a thought that this person isn't listening to you, and then you have a feeling that you're upset. So you separate these things out. And then your feelings cause your actions that you take, and then you have your results. And usually your results are going to be evidence of the thoughts you're having, because the thoughts lead to feelings that lead to actions that lead to the results that basically are proof of what you're having. In a magical way, the teacher Carolyn Elliott talks about it this way: having is evidence of wanting. So the reason I bring all this up is because what I've been doing when it comes to money and a mindset shift is coming from really and working hard on this. Oh my gosh, I'm never gonna make money again, because like I lost my job back in November and I've had unemployment, and it's just like, oh my gosh, I'm never gonna make money again, and having to really shift it to, I can create money. I can create things and sell them. I can create products. Because when you're so focused in this, I'm never going to have money again. Like your brain is so focused on all these other things, you can't actually focus and think of like, okay, what do I actually do that can bring money? So by the way, if any of you guys want a tarot reading, I do sell tarot readings. They're a little bit higher end because my thing is I have a ton of decks. I help you unblock. Like,
you're amazing. This girl, I mean, we're friends, but she will just bust out a deck and just completely change my entire life. I mean, just the other week, I was like, okay, that came out of nowhere. We're just talking. You're like, let me grab some cards. And next thing you know, this major life block just was there for me to like, you're so amazing. You're so amazing. So I can't recommend her enough. You guys can't. So I just want to point that out.
Oh, and before we get sidetracked, because I know we will get sidetracked, we actually didn't get back to the original question a couple questions ago because I got sidetracked. Kind of made me want to start.
Isn't that the fun of the show of having you on? We're like, we're just going to say whatever happens.
I like to say that my tangents wear little tangent hats.
That's awesome. Oh my gosh, I love it.
So lately I've been developing this tarot course. We're going live on the 17th. If anyone wants to find out information about it, the information is at calledoutbytarot.com. That's not going to be the final course name anymore, because right now I'm really shaping it around the people who take the course. Like I've got ideas of what I'm going to teach, but I also want to make sure that like everyone's getting really good information. So it'll be shaped as we kind of do things together. So the live mini beta that I'll be doing will be on the 17th of June. But in the meantime, go to Called Out by Tarot, get signed up. You can get a free cheat sheet after you sign up for just to get notified. And so what made me kind of start to realize that I need to teach it in this shape way is, aside from the fact that I wrote that episode, I was doing a bunch of research because I wanted to make sure that I was teaching things that people wanted. And the biggest things that I kept saying consistently were people not being confident in their interpretations. Like every single Facebook group that has tarot has like 500 people like, hey, can you just confirm my interpretation? I think it means this, but can you just like confirm for me that this is what it means? And a lot of the readings were like, does this boy like me? Is this boy and I gonna work out? Like sometimes it's like jobs or career, but like a lot of the time it's like, how will this boy and I work out? And I'm not immune.
So many. I've definitely been there. I can't tell. I don't lie. Yesterday I might have been like, is this the guy? Like I do it all the time.
Oh my gosh, right? And then you pull out the 10 of Pentacles and the 10 of Cups and you're like,
I guess so. I always pull out the two of Cups is my lover's card, the lover's card, but then the 2 of Cups, I'm like, okay, I get your message.
Yeah, the 2 of Cups is good for the dating and partnership, and the 10 of Pentacles is that like legacy, family, like grandchildren card, and the 10 of Cups is that like everything is awesome.
Yes. So how would you work with somebody then that this is probably part of your course, is like, you know, and we're just talking about mindset. That's such a big thing. And that's such a big thing in magic. I always say, if you don't believe in your own magic, it's not really going to work because you don't believe in it, you know, and if you don't believe in magic, it doesn't exist to some extent. I mean, it's always there, but it really does come down to your belief. And a lot of what we talk about is mindset. So say you have someone that comes in and, you know, you want to teach them how to shape their life, but they don't even believe in their own interpretations. That's like a block that you kind of have to get through, because if they're not if they're using tarot, and we're going to get into shaping your life in a second, but just that basic foundational block is like, well, you're using a tool that is based on your own divination, but you don't believe in your own intuition. How do
Right.
you help someone unblock that?
So, going back to the fact that I do a lot of thought work and that I write a very thin line of skeptic and hard belief. I call, like, for example, when we talk about a lot of past life stuff, I call it Schrodinger's soul when I'm teaching, because I know that the people I'm teaching, they might not believe in souls. Like, I like to believe in souls, but I also like to play with the Schrodinger soul idea of like, okay, what happens if it doesn't exist? Well, I can't really do anything with that information. So what happens if it does exist? Well, here's some past life information that might be able to help me shape and unblock my life. So in terms of working with someone who has to have their own intuition unblocked, I want to talk about thought work for a second, because here's something that's kind of interesting. Intuition can also just be thoughts in your head that you allow yourself to believe and go after. So that's not to say that there isn't some deeper knowing and that we can't get in touch with that. Some people who are on the thought work train, like the person that I learned from is like really hardcore, super skeptic. So she's like on this different wagon than I am. But I like to listen to her thoughts, because I'm like, what if what I think is my deep inner knowing and intuition is, again, just an optional thought, but one that I've allowed myself to believe. When it comes to thought work, what's really interesting is how we do the future and stuff like that. And a lot of times we avoid things we want to do in the future because of a thought we're going to have about ourselves. Like, there's so many things we avoid because we're like, I want to put myself out there in some way and put myself in public. Well, people won't like you. So the thing I'm afraid of isn't actually that people won't like me. It's that I'm going to have a thought that I don't like me, but I'm going to protect other people.
So powerful. Yes.
Right.
Yes.
This is why this thought work stuff is so interesting to me, because like for me, like we'll have to have another episode like literally just about this. I find it a secret key to magic and witchcraft, because a lot of witchcraft is like, okay, set your intention. How do you know what you really want your intention to be if you don't even know what your thoughts are? You don't even know what's currently running on autopilot in the background. Like, one of the things I do is a thought download where I'll write everything that's going on, and I'll be like, oh, that's a really gross negative thought. Instead of just being like, oh, I have to avoid it, I can't possibly think about it. It's like, how long has this thought been running an autopilot in my background, like cache, without me even realizing it?
Yes.
Like without me realizing it. And so this ties in to intuition, because a lot of the things that we think are gut feelings and intuition are thoughts that we're willing to let ourselves have and believe, and not worry about if we're going to have a thought in the future that's going to not let us have it. So
wow, that is deep. That is some deep shit right there. I've never heard of that. This is amazing.
Right? So I have one more point that goes with this. So my teacher, Karen Lowenthal, she's the one that I learned all this thought work stuff from on her podcast, Unfuck Your Brain. She talks about when you're choosing a thought that you want to have and you want to go like after a certain path, she compares it to I apologize. I'm not up on my Greek stuff as much as like literally everyone else in my life. So I apologize. But is it Odysseus that goes on his Odyssey? He goes on his big Odyssey. He's the one that tells him.
Who's the one? Yeah.
That deals with Siren. The Greek figure that deals with Siren.
The Homer? Yeah. I'm not sure.
Please type it in and correct my bad Greek, because I grew up an Egypt kid. I know a little bit more about the Egypt gods because I grew up liking them more than the Greek gods. So.
Yeah, I know. I'm the same. I'm like all like in the Celtic world and Vikings. Right? But I'm like, Greek? I don't know.
So part of the myth, though, is that he wanted to hear the sirens, and so he had his entire crew like stuff wax into their ears, but then he tied himself to the pole so that way he wouldn't get away, even though he'd be breaking free and trying to get away. And then they drove through the sirens so he could see, so he could hear it. So with thoughts and things that you really want to keep, it's kind of making that decision of which thoughts, and this goes to intuitive thoughts too, which thoughts are you willing to keep, that you're willing to tie yourself up to that like ship post, that ship mast, and like drive through and listen to the sirens in order to do it. Like you're willing to like stick that hard to the decision that you'll have your entire crew stuff their wax with ears and get tied to the pole and just drive on through. Which thoughts are you going to allow yourself to do that with? And that's where intuition comes from. And it's kind of hard because, you know, when you're starting to learn intuition, like I would say that what I'm talking about is kind of like advanced intuition stuff, because then like when you're starting to question your intuition, it's just a big step just to get to yourself of listening to your intuition. Like before I got to this kind of advanced stuff of like, oh, what if my intuition is still just optional thoughts that I'm allowing myself to have? Before it was just kind of like, oh, I'm not even listening to those like little whispers. Like I had a friend in my life, and one of my intuitions was just like, you need to not be friends with this person anymore. It's not good for you. And I was just not listening to me. And finally, like I was trying to start to get more into the witchy work. This was like back in 2016. It was like, what's something I'm like, okay, self, I'm supposed to my inner knowing, what should I do? And like my intuition screamed at me, get rid of this friend from your life. I'm like, block them, remove them. And one, I will say, later as a more mature person who understands my thoughts a lot more, that the way I did that with that friend wasn't the most emotionally mature, because I just kind of cut her out of the blue, and it was a long thing. We actually talked about this at my birthday a couple years ago.
Yeah, I remember this. Yep.
But I finally was able to unlock a part of myself that was going to be willing to listen to that intuition when I did that. I actually ended up removing another Facebook friend who I added back later, and I had to be like, hey, I'm sorry. Like it was literally nothing personal. I just had to do this intuition exercise so that way my intuition would know that I was listening to her. Because I forget who I learned this from, but one of the concepts that I learned was that when you keep ignoring your intuition, those little whispers, eventually that's what tunes it out. It's not that you just haven't been in touch with it, you got to unbury it. It's that you've been in touch with it this entire time. You just keep ignoring it. And that little intuitive whisper, and you're like, nah. And so it's just like, I'm just not going to say anything because you're not listening to me.
Right.
So.
I mean, isn't that what most people do? They're waiting for this giant roar, when really, what do you hear all the time? You need to get silent. You need to be quiet. You need to, go out in nature and really listen, because sometimes it's not just like in this lion's roar screaming at you, telling you what to do. Unless, of course, I feel sometimes if it's like a matter of safety, sometimes like you can even feel your guides or, other spirits, excuse me, hop in and, tap you on the shoulder like, no, you shouldn't do that because it's a matter of life and death. But when it comes to those everyday decisions, you hear that all the time. You have to get silent. And one of the things I think that helps me, and I'm curious to know if you do this as well, is yes, your thoughts are just all like, my thoughts are all over the place. Like sometimes I'm like, I don't know if that's a belief I have, whatever. But when it comes to my intuition, I always feel it in my body. Like if I really check into my body has like a elated feeling for something, and then it feels like a little bit gross if I'm not supposed to really do something. So I don't know if you bring those thoughts into your body, because I know thought work is so huge, and we are humans. We have these brains that cause pretty much everything in our lives that does not go right comes from our brains and are the way that we're thinking. So it's so great to heal that side. Like mental health and wellness is just something that needs to be more prevalent in this world. But having said that, I do like to incorporate my body. I feel that me being a human in the physical, my body is such a huge part of following my intuition. It always tells me, I always get like that feeling inside of me that's like, oh, yes or no. Of course, you have to be silent to listen to that too, right? So is that something that you incorporate at all, is like really sitting and like, what does my gut say? Or my hut? This teacher that I had said my hut. I love that. Her heart and her gut. It's like, what does my hut say? And I was like, ooh, that's a good one. Yeah. That was Alexander Frazen, by the way. She's an amazing person I need to have on the show. Yes.
Okay. So yes, I do. And I'm going to get into that in a second. But before I get into that, I'm actually going to talk about something that's really fascinating to me. So again, I do teach a lot of the magic of witchcraft, but I also learn a lot about just the way the body works. Part of the reason I know so much about why the brain works the way it does, and this next thing, is because I have dealt with a lot of mental health issues. And the thing that really helped me deal with my mental health issues, and actually before I even get into that, one, if you ever hear me talk about mental health issues and you hear me give a lot of suggestions, really my biggest suggestion is there's a dichotomy between giving up and don't give up. And I personally am in the don't give up category. And so like, I might suggest something that doesn't work for you. You have to do stuff with your own body and your own medical stuff. But at the core, I'm always just saying, don't give up. Try something new. Try a new tactic. Like you might have tried everything, but that's because it's like that joke about the monkey who like wanted to find the one banana that would fill him up, and so he kept eating banana after banana and going from tree to tree, and then finally he ate a banana, it was full, and he's like, man, if I'd only grabbed that last banana first. he assumed that was the magic banana that made him full, and not that he just ate a bunch of bananas that filled him up. So anyway, I'm trying to bring back to the point.
I love that though. Like, so what I'm getting from that is like a lot of times you have to try, not only try a bunch of different things to see what works, but really also when you're going through the process, you don't realize that those things that you're trying are working on a level. It's just sometimes you don't come to the realization, that final realization. And sometimes you give credit to that last person that you worked with when really your experience the entire time has led up to that. Every single thing you've done in your life, your experiences, the things you've learned, the things you've done all lead up to that aha moment. I mean, that's really what life is, right? So I love that. I love that analogy about the monkeys and the bananas. That's a good one. That makes so much sense.
And so one of the things, and I don't have enough information on this area yet, so don't quote me on it. Like I've read like a little bit in the book about it, but there is this kind of concept of you have a second brain in your gut almost because of like all this like neural wiring and stuff like that. So when people talk about having a gut feeling, it's not like, and we're like talking about intuition and stuff. This is a way to get in touch with that, because for those who are skeptical, who are like, oh, I have a gut feeling, but that's not my brain. But it kind of is, because you have like this whole like neural center there that like connects to your brain. That's why gut health is really important too for your brain. But like when you get a gut feeling, it's because all this like thing down here that's got this kind of secondary gut brain goes up instantly to your brain. That's what you get with that gut feeling. So I'm not well researched enough in this area to tell you exactly how it works, to tell you the science behind it. I'm not even sure if I'm fully quoting it properly, but this is a thing that I was starting to dive into when it came to like learning about gut health and learning about like, oh, that's really interesting, like that we have that. In fact, if you want to get into a little bit more of an interesting thing that combines like science and magic, apparently we have like a microbiome around us that we kind of like live with and exist, which to me is interesting because like of the whole feeling people's energies, auras and stuff like that, and the fact that we might have like a microbiome that we like interact with.
Yeah, what's a microbiome for people like myself that actually don't know? I'm like, wait, what is this? Is that your aura? Is that
so? From my understanding, and again, don't quote me, I'd have to go back and read books. I'll come back and like have egg on my face and be like, sorry guys, here's the actual thing. But from what I last remember, it's kind of like, you know, you have like your gut flora and stuff like that, but then you kind of have like just like it's like your aura, but it's microbes and your microbiome of like your aura of stuff around you, but it's like not germies or creepy crawlies. It's your microbiome.
we're gonna get, you know what? We're gonna pause on that, but I do want to get back into tarot. I was like, hey guys,
that's interesting.
This is really, really valuable. And I love that the conversation is going in this direction. So I'm going to say right now, everyone, Tiffany is coming back at my next available spot in August. And we're going to talk about mental health and magic, because I think you have so much information. We talk about this all the time. This is an important topic, I think, for both of us, especially people that have gone through a lot of this work. So I think that does need to be its own topic. And I want to value that and value this entire conversation. We are coming back to that. So you guys, I think August 1st or whatever that next available slot is, it's yours, honey, because you're gonna come back, and we're making our way to jackets, and we're making our way to her fifth what is it called? The fifth
I don't know. It's like fifth time hosting. I will research.
Yeah, it's a special SNL, but now it's a special tea and magic thing, and you're gonna be like the top of the game. So yes. So you guys, when you're listening to this, I 100% promise that's happening, because this is such an important topic. And I think we need to really, really dive into that. And I want to give it its own session. So we're coming back in August.
Okay.
So let's talk. Let's go back to tarot. Because God, there's so much we could have. Tiffany and I could have like a show that's 5 hours every week, and we could talk about all these things we know. I want to talk a little bit about tarot, because we touch base on a soul mission and discovering your soul mission through tarot. And I'm curious how you would take someone through the process, because a lot of times when people are learning tarot, I feel teachers are gearing that towards people that are learning tarot to then go out and use tarot as a business. But sometimes you can use tarot and you don't have to go out and be a professional tarot reader. I am not really a professional tarot reader per se, even though I do that. By the way, Betty's like looking forward to August 1st already. Yes. Don't quote me on that. Whatever that Friday is, I'm going to check that out. But you like anybody can use tarot, even if that's not their business. And I feel that that's what you're teaching people with this course, shaping your life through tarot, or what, I'm not quite sure if I'm getting the course name right. Correct me if I'm wrong, but that anybody can use this as a tool to find your soul mission. And it could have nothing to do with magic or tarot or any of these topics that we talk about. You could be a lawyer,
Right?
you could be a doctor. So how would you walk somebody through using tarot to access that soul mission and to really find what it is that they came here to do?
So
And where would you even
I'm gonna break
start?
it up to two chunks. First, I'm gonna talk a little bit about what I'm teaching in the course because I think that'll be
Yeah.
relevant, and then I'll talk about soul mission stuff. So
And what is the course name? I want to make sure I get it right.
we don't have a course name yet. We'll find out the course name. It's probably going to be something like transformative tarot or transformation through tarot or shaping your life. Like I haven't decided yet, but it'll be something along those lines. So in terms of what I'm going to actually be teaching on the course, there's going to be information about like the way to do the interpretive intuition version, where like that card exercise that I taught you where you go into the card. I'll be teaching a couple other techniques like that in terms of like really getting to know your cards like that. I'll also be teaching rote memorization, which is basically where you have to memorize this card means this card means that. But I want to teach it in using some techniques from Learning How to Learn, which is a course I took online from Barbara Oakley, and it has like lots of neat tricks and tips for like how to hack your brain to learn more efficiently, so that way you're learning the rote memorization faster. So those are like the first kind of. Then I have like a section on spreads and interpreting spreads and making your own spreads. 'Cause a lot of my spreads, sometimes I'll do interpretive like spreads, but I'll also do a lot of spreads on the fly and not necessarily have each thing mean something. But then when I look at them together, I'm like, oh, this is kind of what that means. So that's like part of the course. Then the other part of
and just to back up a little bit for people that might not be familiar with tarot, that is basically you helping them learn the tarot system quickly so that they can move on to using it. So it's like, here's a quick expedient way of learning how it all works, what the cards mean, and now we can go ahead and use it.
And like one of the things is you can literally learn tarot for the rest of your life if you want to. So like, and I think something I'll have to talk about at some point is you could probably get decently good enough at tarot in 20 hours because you can learn most skills to be decently good enough to practice them and use them, enjoy them within 20 hours. We get really fucked up by this 10,000 hour becoming a master thing. That's if you want to be like Tiger Woods good. I don't think most people need to be Tiger Woods good at the tarot. You can get away with like 20 hours of just some basic work, which is like an hour a day.
Oh, plus there's a huge difference between Tiger Woods is learning a physical skill. This is using your intuition, and you're learning how to use the deck and you're learning the system, but it's also tapping into your own guidance. So that's going to take a lot less time I mean, if you can get around the mental blocks, it's going to take a lot less time than like being a professional athlete, right? Than having to hone in your physical body to do something like that.
Or like becoming like a 10,000 hour master pianist, like
yes,
different skills. So the other part of the course in terms of, I don't think I'm going to be teaching any soul mission stuff in this course, but I will be teaching how to kind of break down some of the bigger areas in your life. Like what do you want? Like what are your passions and what are your blocks? Like teaching someone that was tarot would be, maybe like picking a certain card that represents passion to them, picking a card that represents them. Like if I wanted to kind of know like what some of my own blocks, like why am I not going after my own passions? I would go talk to the Queen of Wands. I'd go do that path working exercise and go into the card. Because you don't have to do that just with cards that you've randomly drawn. You can purposefully pick a card and do that too. So there's like finding your passions, finding out where your blocks are. And I think what happens when you kind of find out your blocks is just you see the tarot, it's an archetype that reflects you. And like the example for that block that I broke out with you, like I just kind of got that gut punch of like, oh, it's about this. And you're like, no,
yes.
It's not about that. And you came back, you're like, it was about that. It wasn't the way you thought, but it was about that.
Yeah, we're not gonna say what that is. That's private, but but it was about that.
I think that it removes you enough from the situation because like, even though technically you're the oracle, these are just paper. These are all just paper. The power's in you, but I think the power's also in the artwork and what you can make the artwork mean. Oh, wow. Sorry. Okay, this is funny. My tarot decks are also very Starky. I had opened up this deck, and the card that I had opened to was the Magician card, and this deck just fell open, and this is the card it opened to, which was the Magician card again. So,
and that's what we're talking about, right? Like, the magician is the person that is able to manifest everything they want in life using all of those powers, all of those elements, and bring it into the physical. So that's such a perfect card to get.
And so that actually, you know what, that's actually a good point. I'll actually kind of go off on that just a little bit. So yeah, the powers within you, the oracles within you, some of the stuff I'll be teaching in the course, your passions and finding your passions, unblocking yourself. Since one of the big things I see is like, when am I going to fall in love? Will I meet this person? Blah, blah, blah. Like, one of the sections I want to teach is how to be a better partner for when you're ready for love. Because like, some people are married, some people aren't. So I want to make sure that the love section works for people who are both single and who aren't single, because a lot of stuff with love, we are so worried about what are we doing to bring the other, like, or when is this other person going to come to us? How are we going to meet them? Who is it going to be? That we've completely neglect to ask ourselves, what am I doing to allow someone into my life?
Yes. How am I being the partner that I want to be for that person to actually come in? Yeah, 100%. Right? I love that.
Oh, absolutely. Like, and again, I do it too. Like, I'm like, oh, is this person, are we into each other? Is this person into me? Is this person going to be like someone that I'll spend a lot of time with? And it's like, Tiffany, are you even really ready for that? Have you done your work on like unblocking yourself from like where you're scared of love? Like, you called me out the other day on something of like, you know, you want this one thing, but maybe it's not that this person isn't doing that. It's that your soul is blocking you from receiving it. And that's the kind of stuff I think that you can unblock with tarot too, is like, you know, you do like, I could teach like a love spread that's like, you know, what am I doing to allow love in my life? And then like have a card that's like let's call myself out right now, y'all. Let's call myself out right now. In fact, Kristen, for the calling out, I'm gonna have you pick a color, and I'm gonna do it based on which decks I have. So pick a color.
Ooh, pick a color.
Pick a color.
Oh God! Well, I gotta go with pink. I'm just all pink today with my queen shirt. See, the queen. I need an empress shirt. Oh gosh, the little witches with the cute little bag on. Yeah, that one. Yeah, that's adorable.
This is my I actually have that tiny tarot deck, and this is the original version of the tiny tarot. So this is what the tiny tarot looks like when it's full.
Oh, it's got a cat on it, you guys. Of course I picked that one. It's got a cat in a hat.
Okay, so let's.
Oh wait, so what are you doing? You're calling yourself out right now.
Call myself out. I would like to fall in love. Where's my block? Where am I blocking myself from allowing myself to fall in love? What are you going to tell me, tarot? How are you going to call me out? Because they're going to show me a card. I'm going to be like, okay, let's see. Call me out, tarot, about where I'm not letting myself fall in love. Oh, this bitch just called me out.
I'm dying. The suspense.
So this is why tarot is really freaking fascinating and interesting to me. One, since I am a skeptic, since I am come from the point of view of, oh, it's just archetypes in your brain and stuff like that. Sometimes, and like I mentioned earlier, sometimes stuff is a little too on the nose. So when it comes to dating, there's this concept of quote unquote masculine or feminine energy or active and passive energy. And one of the things I have a hard time with is being in my feminine receptive energy, because I'm so fire energy and masculine, and like I go after the things I want. And I tend to do that when I'm too. So this freaking tarot deck just called my ass out by saying that what's blocked is me getting unconditional receptive energy.
Is that the Empress? That's the Empress. That's the Empress. Did I not just say the Empress 2 seconds ago? I said I need an Empress card. I need an Empress shirt. I just said it. I just said that. Like, wow, this is how good we are with each other, you guys.
I know, right? And so
perfect magic match.
Telling me that my love block is that I'm not open to receiving. Not only am I not open to receiving love, but that's the thing that I've been having a problem I'm working with in general. Is like I'm so good at that magician, masculine, that emperor, like, yeah, just do it energy, that like I have a hard time just leaning back and being like, okay, the abundance of the universe can come to me in financial and love and all that. And so my big love block is that I'm not receptive to allowing someone to just come to me. I feel like I have to work for it. So thank you, tarot, for calling me out.
Yes.
How many people?
Well, and I think this is such a great topic, and this is a great card to come up because we were just a moment ago talking about money and talking about how our value comes from working hard and being ambitious and going after what we want. And I'm going to say this for all the ladies. And I'm saying this for all the ladies because a lot of us, or at least the divine feminine, if you came here as a woman, you know, especially if you're a straight woman, if you're in a same-sex relationship, there still is usually a polarity between one that's more masculine, one that's more feminine. So the feminine side of the relationship is here to receive. We're here to like kind of put our intuition out there and call it out there and really receive these gifts and receive these abundance. I think that's great for everyone. But what I love about this is we were just talking about money, and we're saying for women, especially for entrepreneurs, like calling it out and letting it come to you and not feeling that you had to work so hard. But how many people do that in relationships? How many people are like, I want love, I need to go overboard? But a lot of women specifically are chasing and trying to go get, and they put, what they're doing is they're putting on the masculine energy to go get a masculine energy, and it's not going to work. It's like, call it out there and be the receiving. The feminine energy is the receiving. We all have that, by the way, in our lives, but in relationships, there's always that polarity. And I think you and I are both that masculine energy. So we're like, I need to go get it. I need to go prove myself.
All fire.
Yeah. But we always feel like we have to prove ourselves to be able to be worthy of that thing. It's like, we got to go out, prove ourselves. It's like, no.
Oh my gosh. I actually have been working because I have some stuff that like I'm unblocking in that area. So I want to circle back to the proving yourself thing in a second. But before I do that, I wanted to quickly just pop a mention in. So I'm pansexual. For everyone out there who doesn't know, I'm pansexual. I'm into all genders, bisexual, pansexual, whichever you want to call it, that works for you. I prefer pan because I am attracted to all genders. Bi means more than one gender that you're attracted to. A lot of people think it means only the two, and that's a big misconception. That, like, you know, and a lot of people think that pansexual people like means that we're into trans people, and it's like, no, trans people are like can fall into the binary or non-binary. Like if you're bisexual, trans person, like it's not because like, you know, you see them as like this mysterious third gender. Like, no, like if they're a trans woman, they're a woman. They're trans man, they're a man. And if you are non-binary, gender fluid, gender queer, whatever, you know, I think that in the Magick community, we do a disservice to our queer community when it comes to these talks, because one of the biggest things is it's not even that we need to be in our receptive divine feminine energy, it's that we need to create balance between both energies. Like we need to find that balance between both energies, and that's like a human thing. And that's why I try to, like, when I talk about it, I do talk about it as the masculine and feminine, but I also like to define it as the active and the passive, because, you know, there's so much weight tied to both of those terms of masculine and feminine, and people think it's like a very gendered thing, and it can sound like a gendered thing, but when you get down to active versus passive, then while gender doesn't necessarily have to be binary, gender exists on the spectrum, the idea of something being passive or something being active, that kind of works a little bit more almost on a binary. Not necessarily in humans. The whole point of being human is that we balance both of those energies. But like in general, like if you have, you know, like my air conditioner, it's actively on or passively off. You know what I mean? Like,
I love that.
That's only with those two energies though. And so I want to be very clear just to anyone who's like non-binary, gender fluid, gender queer, like the binariness of gender within the magical community isn't the same as the gender that we talk about when it comes to gender expression or
absolutely. We're talking about energy.
Right.
And we're really talking about energy.
So what was the thing that I was going to come back to that we were like,
we were talking about going out there and I don't know, what were we talking? Hey, you guys, remind us what were we talking?
Would have been what I was going to say after a second.
Anyway, well, I'm going to think about it. We were really talking about we were talking about relationships, and you were talking about the card that you got and really being able to sit back and receive, which is such a big thing. I think, again, we're talking about energy. We're talking about there's the active energy, there's the going out and going what you want. Like we always have to take action, inspired action. We can't just sit around and wait for things to come to us. But at the same time, when we do go out there and get action, whether it is in relationships, whether it is money, whether it is in success, this is why you probably got the card, is that we also have to be open for a moment and still to receive the thing that we put out there. We can do a lot of work. It's like you have a business, and if you're doing all of this business, you need to be open to receiving the people that are coming to you for that business. And sometimes we get so busy that we miss that. We might miss those moments where it's like, oh, I'm having a conversation. This person would be so perfect to teach. But like, if I didn't have that time, if I didn't create that space, I wouldn't be open to it. And then I'd wonder why I wasn't getting any clients. That's just one example, right? And we could talk about love, we could talk about business, but I think that's generally what we were having a conversation about is that balance of like, yes, you need to go out. So now you just called yourself out with tarot. How would this work in the deck? I mean, obviously the deck is always there to give you those answers. Like, hey, this is what like, say someone is running a business and they do want to shape their life. I mean, how would they really get that information? By using tarot. Like what am I doing wrong? What am I doing right? What do I need to do more of? I mean, this is something I feel like we do every day.
Right?
It's probably a super easy answer. Yeah.
That's a good question, is how would someone do that? If you are really, really, really not at a place where you feel super confident in your interpretations and readings, I would suggest getting a pendulum. Just because then you have a simple yes, no. And then you can kind of like work things out that way. Now, it's obviously great to be able to work without a pendulum, but the truth is I work with a pendulum too. Sometimes like when I'm like having a card and I'm like, I think I mostly know it means this, and I've gone into the card even. Sometimes I'm like, I need a little bit more information. Is it on this area or this area? Okay, it's on this area. Is it on this part of this area or this part of this area? Oh, it's about this part of this area. So I like using the pendulum as like a yes, no to get like a finer response where I basically ask myself and the card 20 questions. So that's one method. The other method is reading the cards together. So like one thing I actually haven't tried doing, I tried doing it and it was a little bit of a catastrophe because of the cards that I had put together. Because I think it was like the Tower and something else. But remember how I did that exercise where you go into the card? I've always been curious if you could do that with cue cards, where you go into two cards at once and you look at the together and then see how the cards interact. So let me pull out two cards. So let's say
while she's doing that, you guys, in the other episode Tiffany was in, episode 7, she does teach you, that is the exercise of how to go into cards. So I would definitely check that out. The link's going to be in the description.
Okay. So how can I make my tarot course a success? These two cards. So what I would say is this is the guy who's like separate from his emotions. Like he's not just separate from his emotions, he's a master of his emotions. In some decks he has one foot in the water, but in this case he's got both foot on land, so he's like really able to separate himself from his emotions. So that might be one thing I consider doing in the course, is I really help people separate out like their emotions from the facts of the situation, and also looking at the card and then adding the emotions back in, like that might be a method. But then the other thing I could do to make it successful is this is the card of rest, and this is saying I'm not letting myself rest enough. So that's another thing I can do to make successful. Yeah. Is just give myself a break and allow myself to rest. There is this concept, and I want to kind of fully get into it a little bit more before I really teach it, but there's this concept of intertextuality. And so the best way I can describe it is, like, I don't even know how to describe the concept by itself, which is kind of you see something in one thing and now you associate it with that thing. And so now whenever you see that thing, you associate it with that thing, even though it's not other media. So the best example is Eye of the Tiger. Every time you hear Eye of the Tiger, no matter what, you can't help but think of Rocky. You can't help but think of boxing. You can't help but think of like winning and doing challenges. So and stuff like that. And so that's the intertextuality of the song Eye of the Tiger. And that's kind of how I like to think about the tarot working as well, is we have this kind of symbolic meaning, like, okay, intertextually speaking, I just got the King of Wands. So when it comes to running my business, for me, this means that like I'm making my master plan. See, I'm talking to my cat and saying, hey, cat, here's how I'm planning on building my realm of magic. So there's that. And then in terms of the intertextuality of it, what else do these things mean? Like, okay, there's a lot of reds and oranges in it. Obviously, it's a fire sign. He's pointing to a big land mass as opposed to the water mass. So he's using his wand and fire and passion to point to the earth part of the map. And so I know what earth means, which is the health and wealth. So he's planning specifically the health and wealth, not to work with his emotions, but to work on that part. You know, he's being covered up by a desk. So maybe even just like he's hiding something from the lower, like his lower half of his gut or something, you know, like these kind of ideas. So
Yeah.
intertextuality speaking, like for example, in my life, I have a cat like this in my life. He's not in my life directly, but like I could see this cat and be like, oh, that reminds me of Dagger. Maybe this isn't about me. Maybe this is about my brother. So like using the different symbols and stuff,
Yes.
kind of creating like an intertextual language of what different things mean. Like, for example, the Eight of Pentacles, I see that, and that's my "you better work, bitch" card. Because in my head, like one of the first times I pulled it, the song that came on in my head was just like da 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 da. You want a Maserati? You want a Bugatti? You better work, bitch. And it's like, yeah, that's the card.
I love that.
Work, bitch.
Yeah. And as you work with these cards, you always associate them with different things. You know, every time I see a certain card, I get it a lot. I'm like, okay, I know what that means.
Right?
I love it. I love it. So we are almost out of time. I think we started about 12:10, but I wanted to ask you, so yeah, tell us a little bit about the courses that you're doing. And also, is there anything that you want to leave the group with? You know, we're talking about shaping your life with tarot. We're talking about using it as a more advanced method, whether or not you're going to be a tarot reader or not. You could use this for your life. You could use this to figure out your life path and your everyday routines and anything that you need to do. Tarot is such a great tool. Is there anything you kind of want to leave the group with? Let's start with that. Any last messages that you want to say? Okay, here's my last bits of wisdom for all of you.
Yes, actually, I do have two. One, find the court card or find the element that you associate with most. So, okay, backing up here. Technically, you could be all cards at once. That's just the magic of tarot. We tend to have a court card that we associate with the most, like I associate with the Queen of Wands, but really to become more balanced, I should associate with all the queens and kings and knights and pages. But still, like when I see the Queen of Wands, I'm like, oh, this is relating to me. So finding a court card that you can kind of be like, oh, this relates to me. This is like the card that's talking about me and my stuff. That's always a good idea. What was the other one? I had another point that was kind of like that. Yes, there it is. Okay. The other thing is do the numerology on your birth date and your name. And specifically on your birth date, find your life path and then find your tarot card. So for example, my life path is 6, so my tarot card is the Lovers. So I can also use that to have more meaning than the average person. I would also say if you have a deck, and even if you don't have a deck, just start thinking about the symbols that mean things to you. If you have a name that's a flower, if you have a name that's an object, if your name is Apple, if your name is like, my name's Tiffany Rose, like if you have a flower, a wood, like if you like whatever, like look up that information with that too, because you're gonna see that in things. Like I see roses in the tarot deck, and while it might mean one thing in traditional tarot, because my name is Rose, that's going to always have like a little bit more of an intellectual meaning for me than someone else, you know? So find out which things are important to you. And if you don't know yet, just grab your deck. If you don't have a deck, that's something I want to do at some point, is I feel like I just need like a little video or something of how to buy your first deck, just to break up a lot of misconceptions, stuff like that.
Yes.
What to do once you get your first deck. But if you have a deck that you either really resonate with or you want to buy a new deck, just look through all the cards and then just start looking at like what symbols pop out to you. It's not about which symbols are there. It's about what pops out to you, because that's your brain being like, hey, there's a thing here we should keep in mind.
Yeah,
so I
absolutely.
want everyone with a tarot card. So I'm going to just shuffle these. I'm using the Light Seers Tarot, which is this. Oh, speaking of Two of Cups, girl.
I think that card's for me.
Right? And so this is like this beautiful.
Yes.
I love this deck. This is such a gorgeous deck. So this is made by the same person who made my Muse deck, the one that has like all the kind of roses and stuff on it. That's the Muse Tarot. She made this deck first, and while she was in the middle of drawing this deck, the Muse Tarot came to her and was like, "You're making me two now." And so
wow, I love that.
Okay, so what's a message for this group that I want to leave everyone off of. And what we're going to do is I'm going to put the card up on screen. And if you'd like, we'll take a minute or two. Ooh, I don't want to pick a card. I want to actually let the card come divinely. And I'm going to put it up, and then you guys are going to all just pop into the card quickly. If you haven't done this before, this is your first time here, what you're going to do is you're going to imagine yourself in a big blank black space. You're going to turn your head left, right, I don't care. And when you turn your head, you're going to see a big shining monolith of a screen. It'll look like this, but it'll actually have the card on it. And you're going to then step into the card, and you're going to walk around, you're going to look behind you, you're going to look in front of you, you're going to take the sights, the scents, the smells, the feelings, the essence. Like, like, I don't know about you guys, but whenever it's like a fall day and I'm driving around, there's just this certain feeling in the air. And I live in California, so I don't live in a place where it gets like really autumny color wise, like that crisp feel in the air. Like I can always feel like, and there's spring days that are like that too. There's just some days where you just get this little extra like pinch of happy in the weather. And so I want you to notice like what the weather and what the essence feels like in there too. If there's any characters, talk to them, etc. And we'll do this for a couple minutes. And I hope that this leaves you guys all with a good lesson. And also, please drop whatever the lesson is off in the comments. Ooh, okay. So this is the card that wanted to come out and talk to us today. Is the King of Pentacles. So yes. If you are a male who is an earth sign, or you feel earthy, because a lot of times we feel like a certain element because that's what's in our charts. I'm a Virgo, so technically I've got a lot of earth energy, but I'm all fire sign, so I feel very fiery. So if you feel really like an earthy masculine energy in general, this might be something that you need to extra pay attention to, but we can all use the lessons from the King of Pentacles. Oh, he's cute. Oh, he got some vibes. Okay, so this is the King of Pentacles. He's got his wolf. So we're going to close our eyes and we're going to go into this card, okay? So I'll do a little bit of a walkthrough. Close your eyes. Take a deep breath in. And just imagine yourself in a big black room of just emptiness. It's just a void. And you're going to turn your head and you're going to see a big glowing object. You're going to walk towards that glowing object. And that's our King of Pentacles card. It's standing there. It's taller than you. It's like a doorway, but a giant doorway. And you're going to walk through it. Maybe depending on the person you are, you need to poke your fingers through and you need to kind of swim your way into the card, or maybe you're able just to walk right into it. And take note of how you have to go into the card too. Now, when you're in the card, we're all in the same card together. So we're going to be in this room together. We're going to look around. We're going to look for the King of Pentacles. So you can talk to the King of Pentacles. You can talk to his dog. You could check out the room he's in and see what stuff is in the room. You could just have him silently sit there and like you do your own thing. Maybe he's got a door to the outside you want to go to. I don't know. But I want you just to take a few minutes right now, explore this space in your mind. Talk to him, see what objects he has, see what sights, scents, smells are around, and I'll see you in a couple minutes. All right. You're feeling ready? Come back to us. If you're not ready yet, you can go back into your mind after this is over and go walk around some more. Um, First off, I would love for everyone to comment what they did and what they talked to. I had a really interesting experience. So,
Yes,
would you like to
please leave
share?
them in the comments.
Yeah. Would you
And
like to
if you're, what's up?
I was gonna say, do you want to share yours? Because I kind of want to share mine.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. First, I just want to say if you're watching this on Facebook and you're watching it now or you're watching it later, definitely leave a comment. And if you're watching on YouTube, leave a comment as well. And yeah, we just love to share these things. I had a really interesting experience. I think the last time we did this, I went into this whole world and I had this card. I felt like this was like this grandfather spirit just inviting me into this really safe place. Like the safe, you are safe is what kept coming up. You are safe. You are loved. This is the earth. So I went in and the wolf was there and the wolf was my wolf. He was there to protect me. This man almost felt like a spirit guide that was there to protect me. So I just ended up sitting in this room and chatting with him and just talking about all of the things I wanted to do in life. And he was like, yes, you could do that. You're totally safe to leave this room and go out into the world and do whatever it is you want because you can always come back here and you have us to help keep you safe. And us was the earth. He really stood for the earth, the animals, the nature. So I just, that's something that I know I'm working through in my life is really like feeling safe to go out there into the world, especially now with everything's happening. So that was my experience. It's just, you are safe. Yeah. So I want to hear about yours.
um, so what was interesting is I didn't actually interact with the wolf like at all. I immediately actually crawled into this man's lap, and all of a sudden I was a little girl, and girl
Yes.
like hanging out on her papa's lap, and I was like asking like
Oh,
like why am I having these issues with love and stuff like that, and one of the things I got was that there's this interesting dichotomy because I, Schrodinger's soul, my soul chose to come here to be raised without a traditional father figure. My father figure is actually my godparent who was gender fluid. And, growing up, they weren't really out about being gender fluid. So I just kind of grew up assuming that I had five moms. And so it's funny that I have this unbalance with my divine feminine energy when part of the thing that's interesting is when it comes to dating, a lot of my issues are with men and allowing their masculine energy because I was, a very fiery young kid. I was the one who, like, since I was the kid, I was the one who did all the boy stuff of like holding open the doors and doing certain dish, like doing the trash and stuff like that. Like,
same.
basically, it's like
Yeah.
since there was no boys around, I was just defaulted to kid, and so I basically did the boy stuff and the girl. And I know that that's a very gendered way of looking at it. Like, I get that. But I was learning like I have a really great relationship with women. So it's interesting that I'm not balanced with my own divine feminine. And I'm so good at being masculine. So it's weird that I still haven't balanced my divine masculine either. And that like I'm not able to kind of like accept all these others divine masculine. And there was some stuff about the person. And I saw us as kids and I'm trying to determine my feels. And we went outside actually and played in the sand by the ocean and built a sand castle. And then all of a sudden we were grown up and he came back in and I introduced this person to this kind of pop-up figure of like, yeah, I really like this person. So that's really
Oh.
emotional and kind of embarrassing.
No, not at all. I know we're gonna all go cry after this. And
I know,
yeah,
right?
I can't, yeah, you're already crying. You're gonna make me cry. Oh no. Yeah, it's just really amazing when you use these cards, use these tools because they're constantly giving you answers and they're constantly telling you what you need to know. And a lot of times this is coming from yourself. This is coming from your
Right?
own intuition. It's like we're diving into this card, but really it's ourselves being like, you are safe to do this. You are safe to be loved. You are lovable. You can be your feminine. And and those things, especially right now, we're in Venus in retrograde. So there's a lot of love stuff happening. And those issues are going to constantly come up when you're using your cards because they're messages that you need to know right now. And they're things that you're working through. So those messages will come up over and over and over until you finally get to a point where you're accepting something or you've worked through something, because that's what the cards are all about, right? It's helping you get to that level of unconditional love for yourself, for the world, for humanity, and removing all the blocks that are standing in your way of having everything that you want in life. right? So that's why they're amazing. And I know that you are going to be teaching this in your course. I'm going to put all the links to everything Tiffany is doing. I want to just reiterate that she is creating a beta right now. And so she is offering everyone to participate in helping her define what that course is. So I'm going to include that link. I'm going to get that from you. You can go sign up. You can take a survey, and you will be able to help her shape that, because again, like you said, you want to create something that people want, not just what you think people need. So you guys could be part of shaping this course, which is amazing. And I believe they get to do the beta test for the course as well, correct?
For a couple of the modules, yeah.
Yeah, for the couple of modules. So that's really amazing. What a gift that you're offering people there, is the opportunity to co-create and to use their intuition and to use their questions and to participate, but then also in return, they get to take these lessons, get to take the first few modules. So that's amazing. I'm going to leave those links. But thank you so much for coming. Oh my gosh. And we are going to have that episode in April. I'm sorry, April. It's past April. I don't even know what month it is, this quarantine. We're going to have this conversation in August about mental health and magic. That is such a huge topic to both of us. So you guys look forward to that. Thank you for watching us on the Magic Grove. If you want to catch out more of our episodes, you can go to themagicgrove.com. I've got the link to our Facebook page where you can watch these live. They're always posted afterwards. I also post them on YouTube so that you can comment and you can watch them whatever is convenient for you. You can find all of that on themagicgrove.com. It is going to be in the description. It is also Magic with a K, because that's how you spell magic. And if you would like to know what's going on, definitely scroll down to the forum and sign up for our emails, because we've got a lot of things happening. I'm always telling people about guests. We've got our own experiences, and that's how I get in touch with you. And that's how you're sure to get the message. So thank you so much, Tiffany. I'm so glad. We're going to say goodbye to everyone on the live, and Pepper is here to say goodbye. I love you. Bye, Pepper. All right. Bye, everyone.